Undercover single dad found a pregnant girl crying at gas station. Unaware, she was a CEO millionaire. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get into today's story. Meet Michael Harris, a man who thought his life had already been defined. He never imagined that his path would cross with someone who would change everything. He never imagined he'd meet her at the most unlikely of places, a gas station. Picture this, a rainy Thursday evening, the streets slick and dark, and the sound of distant thunder rolling in. Michael, a single dad, pulled into a gas station after another long day, hoping to refuel both his car and his weary body. His life had been a struggle lately, juggling his job as a mechanic, raising his little boy alone, and dealing with bills that never seemed to stop piling up. As he stepped out of the car and grabbed the pump, he noticed her, standing by the pumps, a pregnant woman, tears streaming down her face. She looked like she was in pain, but there was something more, something about her that caught Michael's attention. She was alone, vulnerable, and she had a look of desperation in her eyes. Without thinking, Michael walked over to her. "Hey, are you all right?" he asked gently, noticing the way she was clutching her belly. The woman, startled by his sudden approach, looked up at him, her eyes red and puffy. I don't know what to do," she said, her voice shaky. "I've run out of money, and my phone's dead. I don't know how I'm going to get home." Michael looked at her for a moment. He could see she was in need of help, and despite his own struggles, he couldn't just walk away. "Listen, I don't have much to give, but I can help you get somewhere safe," Michael offered. The woman hesitated, but then her eyes softened. "Thank you," she whispered, accepting his help. He took her into his truck, offering to drive her somewhere safe and warm. After a brief conversation, Michael realized that the nearest diner had a working outlet, so he suggested they stop there to give her time to charge her phone and warm up. Little did he know, this simple act of kindness would set in motion a chain of events that would change both of their lives forever. As they sat together in the warm, quiet diner, the woman introduced herself as Lily. They talked about life, about family, and about how things were never quite what they seemed. But what Michael didn't know was that Lily wasn't just any woman. She wasn't just a stranger in need of help. She was the CEO of one of the biggest tech companies in the city. And she wasn't just any millionaire. She had a mission, one that had led her to this moment. As Michael drove her home that night, he had no idea what lay ahead, no idea that his life was about to take a turn he never could have imagined. The next few days passed in a blur for Michael. He couldn't shake the image of Lily, the pregnant woman he had helped at the gas station. Every time he closed his eyes, he could still see her face, the sadness in her eyes, and the warmth of her gratitude when he had offered her a ride. He had done what he thought was right, but something about the encounter stuck with him. He hadn't expected to think about it so much, especially given how overwhelming his own life had been. Between working long hours at the garage, taking care of his son, and barely scraping by, he didn't have time to dwell on things. But Lily was different. He had never met anyone like her. She wasn't just another person in need. There was something about her strength, her vulnerability, and the way she carried herself that made him want to know more. On Thursday afternoon, when Michael was about to close up the shop, he received a message that would change everything. It was from an unknown number. The message simply read, "Hi Michael, this is Lily. I hope you're doing well. I wanted to thank you again for your kindness the other night. If you're free this weekend, I'd love to meet and talk. Let me know. Take care." Michael stared at the message. For a few moments, his heart racing. He hadn't expected to hear from her again. He wasn't sure what to make of it. Was this just a polite thank you, or was there more to it? He wasn't sure, but something told him that he needed to meet her again. So, he replied, "Hi Lily, I'm glad to hear from you. I'd like to meet as well. How about Saturday afternoon?" After a few minutes, she responded, "Perfect, I'll text you the details." Looking forward to it. The weekend couldn't come fast enough for Michael. He spent the next few days replaying the encounter in his mind, wondering what she wanted to talk about. When Saturday afternoon finally arrived, Michael was anxious. He had agreed to meet Lily at a small cafe downtown, The kind of place that had an old-school charm with wooden tables and cozy lighting. When he arrived, he spotted her right away. She was sitting by the window, a cup of tea in front of her, looking serene and composed. As Michael approached, Lily stood up and greeted him with a warm smile. "Hi, Michael. It's so good to see you again." She gestured for him to sit down across from her. "Thanks for meeting me." "Of course," Michael said, trying to hide his nervousness. He sat down, his eyes meeting hers. "I'm glad you reached out." They exchanged pleasantries for a moment before the conversation shifted. Lily looked at Michael, her expression serious but kind. "Michael, I wanted to tell you something. I haven't been completely honest with you. When we met at the gas station, I didn't tell you who I really am. I'm not just a woman in need of help. I'm the CEO of Carter Tech, one of the largest tech companies in the city. I didn't want you to treat me differently because of that, but I think you deserve to know the truth." Michael blinked, taken aback. He had never imagined that Lily was anyone other than the woman he had helped that night. She didn't look like a CEO, not in the way that he imagined rich and powerful people did. But hearing her say it, he couldn't deny it. She wasn't just any ordinary person. He sat back in his chair, trying to process what she had just said. "I had no idea," Michael said quietly. You didn't seem like someone who would be a CEO." Lily smiled softly, a hint of relief in her eyes. "That's exactly why I didn't tell you. I wanted to be seen as me, not my title. I wanted to see if you treat me the same way as anyone else. And you did. That's why I reached out to you." Michael didn't know what to say. He had no idea that his small act of kindness would lead to this moment. But there was something about Lily's honesty, the way she was opening up to him, that made him feel like maybe, just maybe, he had done the right thing. "You really didn't have to tell me all this," Michael said, his voice steady. "I helped because it was the right thing to do." Lily nodded, her eyes filled with something that resembled admiration. "I know, and that's why I wanted to meet you. I want to offer you something, Michael. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I believe you deserve more than what life has given you so far." Michael frowned slightly, unsure of where this conversation was going. "What do you mean?" Lily took a deep breath before continuing. "I want to offer you a job. Not just any job, but an opportunity to help me with a new project I'm working on. I know you've been struggling, and I think you have the skills I need. You're a hard worker, and you have a good heart. I believe you could make a real difference." Michael stared at her, speechless. He never expected this. He had never considered the idea of working for someone like her, let alone a billionaire CEO. But as he looked at her, he realized that this wasn't just about the job. It was about the chance to change his life, to do something meaningful. He knew that this could be the opportunity he had been waiting for. "I don't know what to say," Michael said finally, his voice shaking with a mix of disbelief and hope. "I never expected this." Lily smiled, her eyes kind. "You don't have to decide right away. Think about it. But I believe in you, Michael." Michael sat back, the weight of her words sinking in. He had no idea what the future held, but one thing was clear. His life was about to change in ways he couldn't have imagined. Michael sat there, stunned, as Lily's words echoed in his mind. The offer she had just made him seemed too good to be true, and yet, there she was, sitting across from him, offering him a chance to turn his life around. His hands trembled slightly as he took a sip of his coffee, trying to process everything. A job, an opportunity to work with someone like her, a successful CEO, could mean a fresh start, something he desperately needed. He had spent so many years struggling to make ends meet, raising his son alone, working long hours just to keep a roof over their heads. But this was different. This could change everything. "Lily, he began, but he didn't know how to finish the sentence. "I don't know what to say. I never thought I'd be offered something like this. But I'm not sure I'm the right person for the job. I'm just a mechanic. I've never worked in tech or anything like that." Lily leaned forward, her eyes steady and confident. "That's the thing, Michael. I'm not looking for someone with a perfect resume. I'm looking for someone who works hard, someone who isn't afraid to get their hands dirty, and most importantly, someone who has integrity. You've shown that to me already, by the way you helped me that night. I believe in giving people chances, especially when they deserve it. I see something in you, Michael." Michael felt a swell of gratitude in his chest, but at the same time, doubt lingered. It wasn't just about the job. It was about his fear of failure, about whether he could live up to her expectations. He had been burned before, and the thought of letting her down made his stomach twist. "I don't know, Lily," he said quietly, looking down at the table. I'm just afraid. Afraid that I won't be able to do it. Afraid that I'll mess up. Lily reached across the table, placing her hand gently over his. I understand your fear, Michael. We all have doubts, but what matters is what you do with them. You can't let fear hold you back from something that could change your life. And I'm not asking you to do this alone. I'll be here to help you every step of the way. Michael looked up at her, seeing the sincerity in her eyes. There was no mistaking the confidence she had in him, and for the first time in a long while, he felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe he could do this. Maybe this was the chance he had been waiting for. He took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. Okay, he said, his voice stronger now. I'll do it. I'll take the job. Lily's face broke into a warm smile, and Michael felt a weight lift off his shoulders. I knew you'd make the right choice, she said, her voice full of pride. I promise you won't regret it. We'll start the next chapter together. They sat there for a few more minutes, talking about the details of the job and what would happen next. Michael felt a sense of calm wash over him, as if for the first time in years, he was in control of his future. But even as he felt the excitement of this new beginning, a small voice in the back of his mind reminded him that things weren't going to be easy. There would be challenges, obstacles to overcome, but for the first time in a long while, he felt ready to face them. As they parted ways later that afternoon, Michael's heart was full of gratitude and anticipation. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be without its difficulties, but he also knew that this opportunity was a turning point. It was a chance for him to not only change his life, but to make a difference for his son as well. He had always wanted to give his son a better life, and now, with Lily's help, he finally had a shot at doing just that. As he walked to his truck and started the engine, Michael smiled to himself. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something incredible. Michael's first day at Carter Tech was a whirlwind. The office building was massive, sleek, and modern, a stark contrast to the small garage where he had spent most of his working life. As he stepped inside, the polished floors and glass walls made him feel like a small fish in a big pond, but Lily had assured him that he belonged here. Just be yourself, she had told him the night before. That's why I hired you. You have a unique perspective, and that's something we need here. Despite her reassuring words, Michael couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider. The employees walked around in sharp suits and fancy heels, their conversations filled with tech jargon that Michael couldn't quite follow. He felt out of place, unsure of how to fit in, but he reminded himself that this was his chance, his opportunity to build a better life for himself and his son. Lily had given him a desk in the corner of the office, away from the bustling center of the room. It was a quiet spot, but it made him feel even more like an outsider. The first few hours were a blur of introductions and emails, most of which Michael didn't quite understand. He had always been good with his hands, but this was different. Technology was a whole new world to him. He spent the day reading through documents, trying to catch up, but nothing seemed to make sense. As the hours passed, the weight of his decision began to sink in. What if he wasn't cut out for this? What if he failed? He looked at his phone, wondering if he should call his son, just to hear his voice. But he couldn't, not yet. He had to prove to himself that he could do this first. Just as he was starting to feel overwhelmed, Lily appeared in his doorway. She smiled warmly at him, and for a moment, Michael felt like he was back in his comfort zone. How's it going? She asked, stepping inside. I know it's a lot to take in, but you're doing great. Michael sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. It's just, I feel like I don't belong here. This world is so different from what I'm used to. I don't even know if I'm the right person for this job. Lily walked over to his desk and sat down across from him. Michael, I didn't hire you because you have a perfect resume. I hired you because you have something even more valuable: common sense, integrity, and the ability to get things done. That's what makes you a great fit for this job. Michael looked up at her, his doubts slowly starting to fade. You really think so? Lily nodded. I do. You don't need to know everything right away. Just take it one step at a time. You've already proven yourself by getting here. She paused, then added, and you've already done something no one else in this office has. You've shown me what real kindness looks like. That's more important than any skill or title. Michael felt a swell of gratitude in his chest, and for the first time since starting this job, he felt like he was in the right place. The fear that had been holding him back began to melt away, replaced by a sense of purpose. Thank you, Lily. I needed to hear that. Lily smiled and stood up. Anytime, Michael. Now, how about we grab some lunch? I know a great place nearby. We can talk more about the project I have in mind for you. Michael smiled, grateful for her support. I'd like that. As they left the office together, Michael felt a sense of excitement building inside him. This was just the beginning, and for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was on the right path. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure. He was going to give it his all. The challenges were still ahead, but with Lily's help and his own determination, he was ready to face them head on. Over the next few weeks, Michael began to adjust to his new life at Carter Tech. At first, it wasn't easy. The office felt like a foreign land, and the work was challenging in ways he hadn't expected. But little by little, he started to find his rhythm. He would come in early, leave late, and spend his nights studying the company's systems, trying to understand the jargon and the technology. The more he learned, the more confident he became. It wasn't just about the job. It was about proving to himself that he could do this. It was about showing his son that no matter where you start, you can always change your life if you're willing to work for it. One afternoon, as Michael was working on a new project, Lily stopped by his desk. She was carrying a folder, and her smile was warm and welcoming. "How's it going, Michael?" she asked, sitting down next to him. Michael looked up, a bit surprised but grateful for the check-in. "It's going well, actually. I'm starting to understand more of the systems now, and I feel like I'm getting the hang of it." Lily's eyes brightened. "I'm glad to hear that. I knew you had it in you. I've been hearing great things about you from the team, too. They're impressed with your work ethic." Michael couldn't help but smile. Her praise meant more to him than he cared to admit. "Thanks. That means a lot." Lily leaned forward slightly. "I've been thinking about your role here, and I have a proposition for you. There's a project I've been working on, and I think you'd be perfect for it." Michael raised an eyebrow. "What kind of project?" "It's a new initiative we're launching," Lily explained. "It's focused on community outreach, helping people who are struggling to find stable work, giving them the tools they need to succeed. I know it's a big ask, but I'd love for you to help lead it." Michael's heart skipped a beat. A community outreach project? He hadn't expected anything like this, but it felt like something that was meant for him. This was his chance to give back, to make a real difference in people's lives. "That sounds incredible," Michael said, his voice filled with excitement. "But I'm not sure I'm the right person to lead something like that. I've never been in charge of something this big before." Lily smiled and shook her head. "That's exactly why I want you to do it. You're not just here because of your technical skills. You're here because you have heart. You know what it's like to struggle, and that's something that a lot of people here don't understand. You'll bring a unique perspective to the project, and I believe you'll be able to inspire others to do the same." Michael felt a lump in his throat. He had never been one to get emotional, but hearing her words made him realize how far he had come. He had spent years just trying to survive, but now, here he was, being offered a chance to lead something that could change people's lives. He felt a sense of pride swelling in his chest. "Okay," he said, nodding. "I'll do it. I'll lead the project." Lily's eyes sparkled with approval. "I knew you'd say that. I'm excited to see what you'll do with it." The next few weeks were a blur of meetings, planning sessions, and brainstorming. Michael dove into the project with everything he had, pouring his heart and soul into it. He worked closely with the team, and little by little, the initiative began to take shape. It wasn't easy, and there were times when he doubted himself, but every time he felt overwhelmed, he reminded himself why he was doing this. It wasn't just about the job. It was about making a difference, about showing his son that even in the hardest of times, there was always a way to turn things around. As the project began to gain traction, Michael's confidence grew. He saw firsthand the impact they were making on people's lives, and it was more fulfilling than anything he had ever done. One day, as he was walking out of the office, Lily called him into her office. "Michael, I just wanted to say how proud I am of you," she said, her voice sincere. "The project is thriving, and it's all because of your leadership. I knew I made the right choice when I hired you." Michael smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. "Thank you, Lily. I couldn't have done it without the team, and without you giving me the chance." Lily nodded. "You've earned it, Michael. I'm excited to see where you go from here." As Michael left her office that day, he felt something shift inside him. He had come a long way from the struggling mechanic who had doubted himself at every turn. He had found his place at Carter Tech, and more importantly, he had found a purpose. This wasn't just a job anymore. It was a chance to help others, to give back, and to build a better future for himself and his son. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, Michael was confident that he was on the right path. As the weeks went by, Michael continued to pour his heart and soul into the community outreach project. He worked tirelessly with his team, holding meetings, planning workshops, and connecting with local organizations. The initiative was growing rapidly, and the impact they were making was becoming undeniable. The first group of people they helped had already found stable jobs, and their stories filled Michael with a sense of pride he had never known before. His confidence, which had once been a fragile thing, was now becoming solidified with each success, each person whose life they had helped to change. But despite all the progress, Michael couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more to be done, more that he could do. One evening, as he sat at his desk, going over the project's next steps, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Lily. "Can you meet me tomorrow for lunch? I have something I'd like to discuss." Michael was curious, but also a little apprehensive. He had grown used to working alongside Lily, but he wondered what she wanted to talk about now. He quickly responded, "Sure, I'll be there." The next day, they met at a small cafe just a few blocks from the office. As soon as Michael sat down, Lily looked at him with a serious expression. "Michael, I've been watching how you've been handling the project, and I'm really impressed with what you've accomplished," she began. Michael smiled, grateful for her kind words, but there was something in her tone that told him this conversation wasn't just about praise. "Thank you, Lily. It means a lot to hear that." She took a deep breath before continuing. "There's something else I want to talk to you about. I've been thinking about the direction of the company, and I think it's time for you to take on a bigger role here at Carter Tech." Michael's eyes widened slightly. A bigger role? He had only been with the company for a few months. A bigger role? He repeated, trying to understand. "Yes," Lily said, her voice steady. "I want you to consider taking on a leadership position. I know you've never had a formal position like that before, but I believe you have the qualities it takes. You understand people, you're a natural leader, and you've already shown what you're capable of with the community project." Michael felt his heart race. This was unexpected. He had come to Carter Tech hoping to learn, to grow, but he hadn't imagined that this kind of opportunity would come so soon. "Lily, I don't know what to say. I've never led a company or a team like this. I don't want to let anyone down." Lily smiled reassuringly. "Michael, I'm not asking you to do this alone. I'll be here to guide you, and you have the entire team behind you. But I believe you're ready for this. You've already proven that you have the vision, the heart, and the work ethic to lead. This company needs someone like you." Michael took a moment to process her words. He had always been driven by a sense of responsibility, both for his son and now for the people he had the chance to help through the project. But could he really take on something this big? Could he lead a company? His doubts started to surface, but Lily's unwavering belief in him helped quiet those fears. "I don't know if I can do this, but I want to try," Michael said finally, his voice filled with determination. Lily's eyes sparkled with pride. "I knew you'd say that. I believe in you, Michael." As they continued their lunch, they discussed the specifics of the leadership role. Michael would work closely with Lily, managing some of the company's key departments, while still overseeing the community outreach project that had become so close to his heart. The thought of managing people on such a large scale was intimidating, but Michael knew that this was the kind of challenge he had been searching for. It was an opportunity to take everything he had learned, both from his past struggles and his time at Carter Tech, and apply it in a way that could help the company, and himself, grow. When they finished their lunch, Michael walked back to the office, his mind racing with possibilities. He felt both nervous and excited, but most of all, he felt ready. This was his chance to prove to himself that he could be more than just a mechanic, more than just a struggling single dad. He could be a leader, someone who could make a real difference, not just in his own life, but in the lives of others. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, Michael felt like he was on the right path. He knew that no matter how difficult the road ahead might be, he was prepared to face it head on, and with the support of Lily and the team behind him, there was no limit to what he could accomplish. In the weeks that followed, Michael found himself adjusting to his new role at Carter Tech. The transition from being a hands-on worker to a leader wasn't easy. He had days when he felt completely overwhelmed, questioning whether he had the skills to manage people and projects on such a large scale. But with every challenge, he grew stronger. He leaned on Lily's guidance, trusting her experience and the belief she had in him. Slowly but surely, Michael began to find his footing. He was no longer just the guy who worked in the garage. He was becoming a leader, someone his team could rely on. The community outreach project continued to thrive under his direction, and Michael started seeing the fruits of his labor. The impact they were making in the local community was undeniable, with more and more people reaching out for help. Michael's phone constantly buzzed with messages from grateful individuals whose lives had been changed by the program. But it wasn't just about the success of the project. It was about the connections he was making, the people he was helping, and the purpose he had found in his work. One afternoon, Lily called him into her office. Michael had grown accustomed to these meetings, but today, there was something different in her tone. "Michael, I've been watching you closely over the past few months," she began. "You've exceeded my expectations, not just in terms of the project, but in how you've led your team. You've truly stepped into the role of a leader, and I couldn't be more proud." Michael felt a swell of pride in his chest, but at the same time, a little voice in the back of his mind reminded him of the doubts he had when he first started. He had come so far, but he wasn't sure if he was ready for what was coming next. Lily continued, "I've been thinking a lot about the future of Carter Tech. We've been growing rapidly, and I believe we need someone who can help take this company to the next level. I'm offering you the chance to step into a more senior leadership role, one that will have a direct impact on the direction of the company." Michael's heart skipped a beat. A more senior role? He had barely been in his current position for a few months, and now she was offering him a bigger responsibility. "Lily, I don't know what to say," Michael said, his voice a little shaky. "I still feel like I'm just getting started. I don't know if I'm ready for something this big." Lily smiled at him, her expression filled with confidence. "That's the thing, Michael. I've seen you grow. I've seen how you handle pressure, how you make decisions, and how you've helped this company and the community thrive. You're more than ready. I believe in you." Michael sat in silence for a moment, processing her words. This was it, the opportunity he had been waiting for. It wasn't just about climbing the corporate ladder. It was about the chance to build something lasting, something that would leave a legacy. It was a chance to make a difference on a much larger scale, not just for his son, but for everyone who depended on the company's success. He thought about the years he had spent struggling, about the long nights and the sacrifices he had made, and he realized that this was what he had been working toward all along. "Okay," Michael said finally, his voice steady. "I'll do it. I'll take on the senior role." Lily's smile widened, and she stood up from her desk, extending her hand to him. "I knew you'd say that. Congratulations, Michael. You've earned it." As Michael shook her hand, he felt a sense of accomplishment wash over him. He had come a long way from the struggling mechanic who doubted his own abilities. Now, he was stepping into a leadership role that would allow him to shape the future of Carter Tech and continue making a difference in people's lives. He walked out of Lily's office that day with a renewed sense of purpose. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in his life, Michael felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. He had a family to support, a company to lead, and a legacy to build. And no matter how challenging the road ahead might be, he knew he was ready to face it head on. With his determination, the support of his team, and the belief that Lily had shown him, Michael was ready to take the next step in his journey, not just as a leader, but as a man who had finally found his place in the world. The weeks that followed Michael's promotion were a whirlwind of new responsibilities, meetings, and strategic decisions. He found himself navigating through challenges he had never encountered before, but each time he was faced with a tough situation, he took a deep breath and reminded himself of the journey that had brought him here. It wasn't easy. There were late nights, long hours, and moments of self-doubt, but there was also a sense of pride in knowing that he was making a real difference. His leadership in the community outreach program continued to thrive, and Carter Tech was seeing incredible growth. But despite all the success, Michael still found himself questioning if he was truly ready for this new chapter. His past, the struggles he had faced as a mechanic and as single father, had shaped him into a hard-working, resilient man, but the world of corporate leadership was a different animal. It wasn't just about solving problems with your hands anymore. It was about navigating the complex dynamics of a fast-growing company. One evening, after a particularly tough day at the office, Michael sat at his desk, staring at the reports in front of him. His mind was spinning. There was so much pressure to succeed, to continue proving that he belonged in this role, but sometimes it felt like it wasn't enough. He had come so far, but could he continue to keep up? Just as he was about to put his head in his hands, his phone buzzed. It was a text from Lily. "Are you free for a quick chat?" Michael stared at the message for a moment before quickly typing back. "Sure, I'll be in your office in 10 minutes. When he arrived, Lily was sitting at her desk, her expression thoughtful but warm. "Hey, Michael," she greeted him with a smile. "How's everything going? I know it's been a big transition for you." Michael hesitated, then sat down across from her. It's been good, but challenging. I just feel like there's so much more I need to learn. I don't want to let anyone down." Lily's eyes softened as she listened. "I get it," she said. "But let me tell you something. Michael, you're doing an incredible job. I've been watching you closely, and I can see how much you've grown. You're not the same man who walked into this office months ago." Michael felt a knot in his chest loosen at her words, but the doubt was still there. "I just don't know if I'm really cut out for this. It's one thing to lead a project, but leading the company, making decisions that affect so many people, sometimes it feels like too much." Lily leaned forward slightly, her gaze steady. "Michael, leadership isn't about knowing everything right away. It's about learning, adapting, and trusting your instincts. I believe in your instincts. I've seen you make tough decisions, and I've seen how you care about the people here. That's what makes you a great leader. You've been shaping this company in a way that no one else could." Her words hit Michael harder than he expected. He had been so focused on his own insecurities that he hadn't stopped to realize how far he had come. He had been trying to fill shoes that were too big, instead of acknowledging the strength that had brought him this far. "I've always been afraid of failing," Michael admitted, his voice low. "I'm not sure I can live up to everyone's expectations." Lily smiled gently, her voice soft but firm. "Failure isn't something to be afraid of, Michael. It's part of the process. What matters is how you handle it, how you pick yourself up and keep going. You've already shown that you have the resilience to succeed." Michael took a deep breath, letting her words sink in. For the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of peace. He had always been so focused on the pressure of doing everything right that he had forgotten to trust himself. "I'm starting to see that," he said quietly. "Thank you, Lily, for everything. I wouldn't be here without you." Lily nodded, her expression proud. "You did this, Michael. You earned it. Now, let's keep moving forward, together." As Michael left her office that evening, he felt a sense of clarity he hadn't experienced in a while. The path ahead would still be challenging, but he no longer felt like he was walking it alone. He had a team behind him, a purpose to guide him, and the belief that, with every challenge he faced, he would continue to grow. As he drove home that night, the weight of his responsibilities seemed a little lighter. He wasn't just the leader of a company. He was the leader of his own life, and that made all the difference. He smiled to himself, thinking of his son waiting at home. This was for him. This was for their future. Months passed, and Michael's life had changed in ways he never could have imagined. His role at Carter Tech had grown, not just in title, but in responsibility and impact. The company continued to thrive, and so did the community outreach project he had poured his heart into. Michael had become more than just an employee. He had become a leader in every sense of the word. He now had a team who looked to him for guidance, and the trust he had earned from his colleagues and Lily gave him the confidence to lead with purpose. As the company expanded, Michael found himself more involved in strategic decisions, from high-level business meetings to crucial collaborations with local organizations. The pressure was immense, but he embraced it, using his past struggles as fuel for his success. Each challenge he faced, whether in the office or at home, became an opportunity to grow and improve. He had learned not to fear failure, but to see it as part of the journey, a lesson that had made him a better leader and, more importantly, a better man. Despite all the progress, one thing remained at the forefront of his mind: his son. Michael had promised himself that he would give his son the life he had always dreamed of. He wanted to be the kind of father who could provide not only financially, but emotionally and physically as well. He wanted to show his son that no matter where you start in life, with hard work and determination, anything is possible. One Saturday morning, after a particularly long week at work, Michael decided to take his son to the park. It had been a while since they had spent a full day together, just the two of them. As they played, Michael realized that this was the life he had been working for, the life he had promised himself and his son. The joy on his son's face as they ran around the playground was all the validation Michael needed. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden light over the park, Michael sat down on a bench next to his son. He felt a sense of peace he hadn't felt in years. "Dad, when I grow up, I want to be just like you," his son said, looking up at him with wide, sincere eyes. Michael's heart swelled with pride. He had never imagined that one day his son would look up to him like this, seeing him not just as a father, but as a role model. "You can be anything you want to be," Michael replied, his voice thick with emotion. "Just work hard, be kind, and never give up. And I'll always be here to support you, no matter what." That moment, sitting there with his son, was the culmination of everything he had worked for. He had faced so many obstacles along the way, but he had overcome them, one step at a time. And now, he had the chance to not only change his own life, but to shape the future for the next generation. Michael knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy. There would still be challenges, and there would be moments when he would doubt himself again. But he also knew that with each challenge, he was becoming stronger, more capable, and more prepared for whatever came next. He wasn't just building a career at Carter Tech. He was building a legacy of hard work, integrity, and love. As he looked at his son, he knew that this was just the beginning. The future was full of possibilities, and with the lessons he had learned and the support of those around him, Michael felt ready for whatever the next chapter would bring. With his son by his side, and the belief that anything was possible, Michael was ready to face the world, knowing that he had already come so far. The journey had been long, but the reward had been worth it. And no matter what the future held, he would face it with strength, courage, and the unwavering commitment to make a difference in the world.